Hello, and welcome to 5 Minute Math. For today's number talk, we are looking at the fraction 3/10, trying to decide whether it's closer to 0, 1/2, or 1. So one way that we can think about this is to look at that denominator, 10, and reimagine all three of these quantities as tenths. So how can we rewrite 0 as tenths? Well, it's just 0/10. Any denominator, doesn't matter what it is, if you make the 0 the numerator of that fraction, it's equal to 0. 0 halves, 0 thirds, 0 fifths, 0 tenths, it's all equal to 0 because you're not taking any pieces. The 1 is pretty easy as well, because if you want to rewrite any fraction as 1, just make the same numerator and denominator, and obviously I'm looking at tenths. I want them all to be tenths. So 10 tenths is equal to 1, so is 5 fifths, 8 eighths, 13 thirteenths. Just make sure you have the same numerator and denominator that's equal to 1. Now, how do I change 1/2 to 10? Well, there's a few different ways to do it. The algorithm that I like to use is I set it up like this. 1/2 times something is going to equal my target denominator of tenths. So 2 times what makes 10, because you multiply straight across, that's 5. We need to memorize our facts. And since it's an equivalent fraction, it's really equal to 1. So you're going to end up multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same thing. So 1 times 5 makes 5. So 1/2 is equal to 5 tenths. Or you could have just said to yourself, look, what's half of 10? Half of 10 is 5. There's 1/2. That also works. So I know my 3/10 is not going to be closest to 1. It's going to be somewhere in between 0 and 5/10. And it looks like it's going to be, maybe right around there. So I'm thinking it's closer to 1/2, but how can I know for sure? Because it's kind of close to 0 as well. Well, another way to do this is to break this into fourths, right? I need to find that halfway point. What is this halfway point between 0 and 1/2? And is my mark that I just guessed, is that really above the halfway point? Well, most of us know that half of a half is a fourth, right? If you think about a shape, I cut it in half. I want to cut that half in half. What I've got now are fourths. So this is 1/4. 1/2 can also be rewritten 2/4. And this could be 3/4, right? So I want that 1/4. But I need to rewrite that into tenths. And here's the problem. If I think about it using my algorithm, 1/4 times what equals 10? 4 times nothing really makes 10, so that's not going to help us. So we know that 1/4 is half of a half, so I need to think, what's half of 10? Well, or half of 10 is that 5, that gets me my 1/2. Now I need to think, what's half of that 5? So if I were to take 5 and cut it in half, right? I'd get 2 on this side, I'd get 2 on this side. I'd have to cut that middle one in half. So really it's 2.5 or 2.5. So that's why you really couldn't convert from fourths to tenths without getting into decimals, right? It would be 2.5. And that's going to make this 2.5 tenths. So here's my 2.5 tenths. And I thought this was a 3/10, and that does make sense now, right? It's that 2.5, 2 and 5 tenths. If we want, we can make that 3 and 0 tenths. It doesn't really matter. That 2 in the ones place is going to be smaller than the 3 in the ones place. So by just 5 tenths, or just by a half, that 3/10 is actually closer to 1/2.